You either have the systems of kings or you end up with the poverty of paupers. Every business owner is working in their business and they're wondering how they can grow it. The reality is this: it all comes down to one thing. We all have 24 hours in the day. But what separates business owners from those that are just maintaining their business, running around frantically trying to keep it all together, from those who are actually growing and scaling their business, is this one thing. It's your use of time. That's it. It's your use of time. That one thing. How do you use your time? So I want to talk to you about business systems from a kingly perspective, because either you're going to bring rule and dominion into your business endeavors, or you're going to basically become slave to the prevailing systems, cultural, societal, and economic systems of the day that will place you as a slave and a pawn into their chess game as they're exercising kingly rule. That's the way it works. So you'll have to enter into a kingly mentality. I'm going to give you three things. The first one is this reality. You will have to bear a cup. Every king has a cup to carry, a cup of which they will have to drink from. What do I mean by this? If you look in Luke 22:39, you see this incredible picture of Jesus in Gethsemane. And the Bible teaches he came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. And when he came to the place, he said to them, "Pray that you may not enter into temptation." And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed. And he said, "Father, if you're willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." And there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. His sweat became like great drops of blood falling to the ground. And then he rose from prayer and he came to the disciples. There's this picture of Jesus. He's in his greatest hour of trial and struggle. And in that great hour, he wrestles so terribly that the Bible teaches his sweat became like drops of blood. He was looking into the cost, the sacrifice, the necessary cup that he would have to drink in order to absorb and drink down all to the very bottom, to the dregs, the wrath of God. Without that, he would not be able to go to the cross, to suffer and die, and on the third day rise from the dead and receive the name that is above every name and be crowned king over all of his creation. There's a cost to being king. Make no mistake, you will not have a rule and a domain and a dominion and a stewardship and a management over anything if you are not willing to bear the cup. The cup is suffering. The cup is difficulty. It is crushing. It is change. You will not enter into a pathway of discipleship and of growth and of maturity without a great cost. So the question to you on this first point is, are you willing to pay the price of kings? Every king pays this price, every ruler, every manager, every business owner. People love to look at the blessings of kingship or the blessings of entrepreneurship as a parallel. They love to say, "Oh, wow, look, you have such big muscles, you must really enjoy the gym," or "Wow, you're such a great football player. Messi, you must be having such a great life." Or I remember walking through the airport in London Heathrow a few years ago and seeing Tiger Woods on every poster, every banner, and I heard people say, "What a wonderful life he must have to be able just to do what he loves every day." It is absolute ignorance. It's just sheer stupidity to say such a thing. It is insanity. It is just such blindness to say, "Oh, that football player. Oh, that business owner. Oh, yeah, that golf player. Oh, yeah, President Trump has has whatever he wants." But it's just absolute folly. because the cost of Tiger Woods is he is a slave to rising at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., to get into the right mindset, to have the right food, the right nutrients, the right disciplines, the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours to be able to play at that level. And it's the same in entrepreneurship. You will be crushed, you will look in the mirror, and you will meet the most awful terrors. And Jesus, 3 decades into his training, the king, the sovereign ruler, the very God, the Son of the Father, the darling of heaven, the Rose of Sharon, the beginning of end, through whom all things were made, for whom all things were made, by whom all things were made, took 3 decades of learning and growing in obedience, growing in favor with God and man, and struggles, and looks into this cup and looks at the cost, pleads with his Father, if there's any other possible way, please. Nevertheless, I'll take the cost. In order for you to walk into the assignment, it is an altar, and it will take the sacrifice of your life. It will be a seed going into the ground. You don't put it on a tile on your windowsill. There's no growth there. The seed goes into the ground and dies. And this is the same in entrepreneurship and business. You will have to die and become the person worthy of leading this enterprise. What is the cup? What is the cost? Here's the second thing. In order to have the business system of kings, you're going to have to change your use of time. I just want to read this quote to you. It's from one of the executive leaders and co-founders of the Grant Cardone companies. It's the Cardone Ventures company. Her name's Natalie Dawson, and she scaled this company phenomenally with a lot of wisdom. And she says in her introduction in her book, running a business and growing it are 2 very different things. What holds business owners and leaders back from exponential growth is where they're spending their time. That's it. The truth is that while most leaders are in the trenches running their businesses, they're putting off the work that's going to help them scale and grow their team, their reach, and their revenue. And to make things work, she says, they aren't aware of what the scaling process entails. Nobody ever told them. Everybody would like to scale their business, but what does it even look like? What specifically do you have to do? And so when you go into the discipleship model of Jesus, you realize that the economy of growth and scaling, it's no joke. It requires a massive, massive training ground in your use of time. It requires a time redemption strategy. Here's what happens when you succeed. When you succeed, you prosper and you grow, and your initial inclination, your default, is to have your fingers in many pies and for you to try and wear all of the hats of your business, and you start to literally lose your soul. You're giving your affections, you're giving your desires, your energies to so many things, and you're being spread thin. It's actually a massive technique of the enemy. When you open up the scriptures and you see the enemy has a spiritual way of prospering you and increasing you, and your money is growing and you're prospering, because the enemy knows where he cannot get you into gross sins and gross errors. He can make you your worst enemy against yourself, use your mind against you. I got to pay these bills. I got to hire these team members. I got to do my cash flow. I got to do the accounting, the marketing. I got to do the financials, the forecasting. I got to sign the lease. I got to be my own lawyer. I got to be my own accountant. And while there is a little bit of wisdom in learning multiple disciplines, it is a huge error where you will be spread so thin, you'll have little time for God, very little time for prayer. You'll forget the power and the presence of stillness in the presence of God, and you will start to enter into a Babylonian economy. You may have exited the rat race, but you've entered the hamster wheel. You may have thought you had left Pharaoh's sovereign controls, but you've left and walked into the arms of Jezebel and her daughters, the seductive influences and the satanic lullaby of prospering in the economy. And so what's required of kingdom business owners is a strategy to deploy and to delegate to team members so that you can exercise your vision and your kingly strategy and designs under the anointing of the Spirit. And that requires time. You will need to put aside time for it and prioritize time. The third thing is, you see this in 1 Kings 4. You will have to become an expert of systems. You'll have to create systems. 1 Kings 4, it's a beautiful, fascinating passage of Scripture. You see King Solomon, at least in one of his good seasons. King Solomon certainly has his problems. But in one of his better seasons, he's asked the Lord for wisdom to serve his people. And God has met him with both wisdom and riches. And here, in wisdom, he's appointed 12 officials that help him govern the land and govern the area. You even see 2 secretaries. You see one who's a priestly function. And the wisdom is made known where even every one of the officials is required to bring in the sustenance and the resources, the revenues, to be able to supply all of the food and the resources that the whole kingdom needs for a whole month. So the systems of deployment here are at such a level of maturity that Solomon has been able to put, as it were, his spirit on other officials. So their excellence and their standards and their economic proficiency, even to the priest, is such that their provisions are so generous they're able to supply everything that's needed in the whole land. You will have to have systems. Moses struggles with exhaustion. His father-in-law Jethro comes to him and says, "You're going to get wiped out. You will have to appoint leaders." And Moses comes and does so accordingly. In order for Jesus to expand his discipleship model, he brought to himself 12. Again, same as 1 Kings 4, the number of government. He put his spirit, he breathed upon them. He indoctrinated them. He discipled them. He said to Peter, "Come and follow me. I will make you of something and make you a fisher of men." And then he had them watch him and then sent them out as well. And they were able to walk after the way, living the just living by faith. And you will have to learn this. There is no way you're going to build wealth on your own wearing all of those hats. There's absolutely no way whatsoever. You'll have to put systems. What's the first system required today? Find your next hire, train them so that you will maintain that time of stillness and devotion before God. Find the next hire, train them well, deploy, delegate really well. So to have the business system of kings, you've got to be willing to pay the price, number one, and bear the cup. Number two, you're going to have a time redemption strategy. And number three, you're going to have to become a king of systems. This requires a complete and profound change. And I'll finish with this. When you're walking with the Lord, you probably in those early years thought, I'm going to find myself a business to fund the ministry. And I'm going to give shape to that business so that it's just how I like it to make me money. But actually, it was just the other way around. Your calling has come and it has found you. And the Spirit of God has said to you, I'm going to shape my son, shape my child just how I need him, for him or her to become the kind of person that I can entrust with faithfulness and diligence and holiness. For Ephesians 1 says, in love, he predestined us to be adopted. That means begotten, raised up in the royal home as sons for holiness and devotion to him alone. You thought you found a business. Actually, the kingdom found you and is preparing and shaping you for the pleasure of the King.